I'm Leanne Tran, psychologist who's worked with families whose kids don't fit the mould for almost 20 years. I've worked with children for decades, but I know parents are the real change makers when it comes to their kids. Having 3 kids of my own means I know it's not easy. Parent Like a Psychologist is all about simplifying how you support your kids with psychology information filtered through years of experience to take you from overwhelmed to confident. Come on in. Welcome so much, Bridget. It's lovely to have you with me today.
Thanks.
Sorry, you're welcome. So Bridget Johns, the founder of Be Simply Free. Thanks so much for joining me because I think your work about using organization to try to be free as a parent is something that everybody could relate to.
Thank you for having me.
So I'll read a little bit about you. So you're the founder of Be Simply Free. It's a optimization and life organization business. Your mission is to empower women to live a life where their homes and minds are decluttered so they can be simply free. That sounds amazing. And so you teach women how to reduce their mental load and find more time to collect moments, not things, by decluttering their homes, calendars, and minds. You're also a grant writer and use your organizational skills to help businesses, councils, and community groups organize their wish lists of dreams into fundable projects and finds grants to help turn ideas into reality. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned that thirdly, but most importantly, you are a farmer's wife and a mother to a 12 and 10-year-old, and you live on a broadacre cropping and sheep farm in the Yorke Peninsula of South Australia. That sounds really interesting as well. And you were a busy, stressed, overcommitted perfectionist who found that by minimizing the stuff in her home and mind, she could live a much happier, joyful, and meaningful life, and now helps other women do the same thing. That really is fantastic. When I read that, I just think I can relate to so many points of that, and probably would say that I myself am one of those busy, stressed, overcommitted perfectionists. So really interested in hearing any tips that you have for us today.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to be clear that sometimes I can fall back into being that as well. And it is
Mm,
really when we focus on enacting the systems that are working for us and our family that can support us to free up time so we can do more things that bring us joy. And I am mainly a grant writer, so I continue to work part-time as an employee and as a consultant grant writer under Be Simply Free, and it's just about to get its own business name because it's growing so
mhm.
much. And I started sharing the organization tips that I now share with my clients under Be Simply Free because in 2018 I had a knee injury and I started sharing my rehab journey, and a lot of these time optimization tips were really what was helping us get through that time. And I was sharing it anonymously on Instagram while I was working for state government.
Mhm.
And it really resonated with people, these tips to do things a little bit differently, getting the family involved. So it's not just mums being the maids and doing everything around the house. And that was just before COVID. And I was sharing those things. And then there were some changes in my work life, which required me to travel 2.5 hours down to Adelaide to continue in my state government role. And I wasn't keen to do that, being based on our farm.
Mm.
And I asked that question, if time and money were no object, what would I want to do? And I said I wanted to be a professional organizer, which scared the bejesus out of me, being a professional in regional management roles and studied and my MBA and things like that. But I love helping people optimize time and get organized. And that's what I've done in my whole career as a project manager. So I took some baby steps to bring what is now Be Simply Free to life. And then I took all the good bits from my old role, and a lot of that was writing grants or administering grants, and then crafted myself a employee role with our local council as their in-house grant writer. And then more and
Mhm.
more people were coming to me wanting some support with grant writing in their community groups or businesses and things like that. So I started doing consultancy work under Be Simply Free as well. So I have truly crafted a role that brings all the good bits of previous roles together. And I can help people in their personal lives free up that time and optimize their spaces, their calendars, and reduce that mental load, but also continue to work with businesses to get them organized and having more money coming into our local region and to businesses around us. So that's how I got to where I am now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I was going to ask if it was what triggered the change. And you might put that down to the knee injury and that kind of thing, but it sounds like you were always doing that organization anyway beforehand. And do you think that's, you've mentioned that it was part of your professional role, but do you think it's also a bit of a part of your personality as well?
I think I'm always a strategist, trying to think of ways to do things easier. We
Right.
have 1,440 minutes in our day, and I'll talk a bit more about a 1% pocket of your day, which is 14.4 minutes. We cannot have more time in our day. So I think I've always had that mindset of how can I make this easier or simpler or outsource it to someone else to do so I can have more time to sleep, to look after myself, to do more of the fun things that come into life. And when I think back, so I had the knee injury in 2018, but probably the catalyst was having our children. I was working in state government
Mm,
and went back part time after my son. My kids are 21 months apart. So I had my son, came back to work when he was about 10 months old, and then went on maternity leave about 6 or 7 months later between contracts in government roles as well. So I didn't know if I was going to be able to have a contract rollover when I had my daughter. And
right.
I took on more of the mental load and physical load when I was home because society and maybe myself as well, I'm physically home more. I can do more in that home life while I was on maternity leave. But then I added more and more into my time when I went back to work, working part time as a type A personality. I thought I could do a full time workload in part time hours because I was that good in italics there. But you only have so much time. I was expecting myself to do a 40-hour week in 18 hours. I continued to do all the things around our home, and I was
Right.
working in an engagement and wellbeing director for the education department. So I can tell you all the things that it takes to look after yourself, but I wasn't enacting them. And I was at a Are You Okay Day planning meeting for our local community, and it was a real eye opener that if I don't look after myself now, it was a suicide prevention network that we were looking at a community workshop for. And while I was nowhere near that level of needing that level of support, I believe we can all put strategies in place to look after our well-being and improve it. And I wasn't doing that. So I jumped
Mm,
into a car, kept it professional in the meeting, but then burst into tears and
mm,
thought, I can't continue to do this. I can't continue to do everything around the home. That was a lot self-imposed. My husband is an amazing support and he does so much in our home as well. And I can't keep trying to do the full-time workload. So sharing that and crying to my boss in my work life and having a wonderful supportive boss to talk me through and declutter what the actual priorities are for my work life and
mm.
really outsourcing to the admin team, which I always had their support. I just wasn't using it. And then also coming home and bursting into tears to my husband and us having that open, frank discussion and communication about how we want to divide up the tasks that it takes to run a household was a real catalyst. And that would have been in 2015. And then we
Hmm.
took those baby steps to reorganize how we run our house, our farm, our work lives, so we can spend more time enjoying our family. And sometimes that's at home, near the farm, or traveling around Australia as well.
Awesome. I think there's a few parts to it, isn't there? Because I can relate to what you're saying, and if I can, I think lots of parents, or particularly women and mothers, can. And it's that it's sometimes that we're trying to take on a lot more than we just have the time for. And it's not necessarily because we don't have supportive spouses and
Yeah.
co-parents, but it's just we get into this trap of trying to do more than maybe we have the time for, or having, visions and dreams that we want to accomplish and trying to do them all at once as well. But what it comes down to in the end, that we're the ones that need to put the systems in place, like you mentioned, or have those conversations and make those changes. Because while part of it might be due to the circumstances around us, it's we're the only people who have that power to make the changes to make our life what we want it to be.
100%. And I think we can get lulled into that Instagram perfect world where people are sharing probably 1% of their life online and seeing it all happening perfectly. And I try and be as real as possible, particularly on my Instagram stories, around that my house is not clean and tidy 100% of the time. And I actually put systems in place so I can spend less time cleaning so we can
Yeah.
have more time together. And it's kids, I've got now got a 12 and a 10-year-old. They are capable of so much. And I believe that as parents, our role is to raise capable adults. And we need to work with them with age appropriate tasks to do all the things that it takes to run a household so we can
Mm.
all have those pockets of time to do things that we all enjoy. And I think mums in particular are really bad at dropping off all our hobbies, and scrolling Instagram is not a hobby. And
Yeah.
we need to make some time to do things that we love. And I think that's being dropped off because we're carrying the load, the mental and physical load of doing a lot of things around our home because it may feel like it's quicker for us to do it. But let's work together with husbands and kids to teach them how to do different things so we can all free up time. And I have an adage that if a child can use an iPad, they are capable of turning on that washing machine. So just because you've always done
Mm.
a task doesn't mean we can't teach others to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you link it to having more time to be able to do things we want to do, whether it's hobbies or spending time with family and that kind of stuff. Because sometimes we can think too that we make things more efficient so that we can get more done, but that's not really what we want in life. Um, so you've talked a bit about the mental load and time efficiency and optimizing things. What's different for you in your family now since you've put those changes in place?
It's that people don't always, they still do sometimes, but they don't always come to me to ask how to do things or what's happening or
Mm.
what's for dinner and things like that. That is very exhausting to feel like you have to know everything. And if we put a business analogy on it, the CEO doesn't carry all of the mental load and physical load of running a whole business. We outsource to different people, we bring in specialists. And I know we can't do that exact thing in our home,
Mm.
but we feel like we're the CEO, we're the cleaner, we're the laundry person, like we do everything. And what's some little simple ways we can bring other people, upskill our family so they can take on more of those tasks and, yeah, to simplify things down. And I'm a big believer the less extra stuff we have in our home actually makes it easier for everyone to understand where the homes for things are and putting things back. If you've got an overflowing Tupperware drawer, we can't have things
Yeah.
away and it ends up being extra clutter everywhere. And it actually saves us money. So if we're not buying as much little toys and things from Kmart and Target when we go out shopping, it means the kids are easily able to put their things back when they've played with them and still enjoy all their beautiful things. And for us, we talk to the kids about maybe we spend less on knick-knacky type things and takeaway than their friends, but we intentionally put that money into a savings account. And every fortnight, we have money going into a holiday account so we can physically go away and collect more moments, not things. And for us, that could
Mm.
be within 20 minutes from our house. It's not about the big overseas holidays all the time. But yeah, we
Yeah.
want to make sure we are traveling and showing the kids more things around us rather than having stuff in our home.
Yeah. And so how do you help, or what's the process that you use to take parents through that decluttering process?
I talk to them about stop, focus, notice. We need to stop doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We need to focus on what the actual issues or pain points are in different areas of our home and then notice what different options we have for solving them. So, unfortunately, there's not a cookie cutter. You need to do exactly
Mm.
all these things because families are in different seasons of life. If you've got newborns or the toddler stage, or we're in the preteen stage, and I've got friends with kids off at boarding school as well. So you need
Right.
to recognize where you are right now and having that open, clear communication with the people that it impacts. Get the husbands involved, get the kids involved. So a strategy that for the common strategy that people use to start is to have that family meeting, sitting down together and seeing and communicating what the issue is. A lot of the time, maybe husbands and kids don't realize it is causing resentment for the mum, and coming up with a strategy to trial. And that is a key term that I encourage people to use because no one likes change. No one likes to do things differently. But if we agree to trial something, we can see how it goes forward. An example in our home is that we found, well, I was doing studying a diploma of positive psychology and well-being, and I
Hmm.
said to myself, I didn't have any time to finish off the study. And when I stopped focus notice sitting on the couch next to my husband while we were both tapping away at our phone watching Married at First Sight, I'm like,
Uh-huh.
we're watching 6 hours of TV, and then I'm still saying that I have no time to do this study. So we had a family meeting. Back then, the kids were 4 and 6. So we sat down at the kitchen table. And at that stage, one was at kindergarten and they were talking about chairperson and minute taker. So we played on that and had one of them as the chairperson and minute
That's
taker.
awesome.
And I sat down and explained the issue that I was coming up against, but also their reactions when we turned TVs off in the morning and afternoon. And we agreed to trial no TV Monday to Friday afternoon for adults and kids. That
Okay.
was 6 years ago. And surprisingly, they were willing to give that a go if it meant that the adults were doing it too.
Yeah.
And we found that mornings were smoother because there was not that pull and distraction of getting everything done. So the kids could sleep in a bit longer and get longer sleep. And then we had an amount of time that we thought it would take them to do the mornings, and we doubled it. So they had some buffer time in there as well. It meant that after school, the kids just naturally went to play with things or were outside or interacting together. They did get a lot dirtier being on a farm outside playing.
Yep.
And the communication, my husband and I were having a chat in bed before we went to sleep, before we read our books. So there were so many benefits that flowed on from that. And we're still trialing that 6 years later. School holidays, it goes out the window that we do have TV during school holidays. If people are really sick, we'll adapt it as well. So it's not about being
Yeah.
super rigid all the time. And we have included the kids can have 20 minutes iPad time after 6 o'clock. So we're still encouraging them to play after school. But yeah, that may be a strategy families want to try, because I do find that having not getting caught up in that 7:30 or 8 till 9:30 time, it allows us to get everything we want to get done during the week. And then I can binge watch some TV on a Friday night or weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not missing out totally, but it just allows us to prioritize what we want to get done during the week and have a generally calmer household.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I think too, what you're talking about there is similar to the thing I guide parents through in some of my programs as well. And I've got one about supporting your teenager with ADHD. And a lot of it is about recognizing too that strategies don't suit all families in the same way. So a lot of what I do is presenting information that then is tailored to families and they try it out in just the way that you've mentioned. It's not, but also I love the way that you've done that meeting with the family, with the kids as well, to have them be involved in the solutions and situations. And I advocate for that with teenagers a lot because they're at that different stage of life. But what you've shown too is that it works with quite little kids.
Yeah,
And I
definitely.
Yeah, if they're on board, I think it goes a long way to having a trial of the situation, like you mentioned. And it's not until you have a go at it that you can then stop and notice, like you mentioned, and see whether the changes have brought positivity or not.
Yeah, it's so true. And they can come up with amazing ideas as well. And how empowering to have someone to listen to you and say, yep, I'd really love to give you that option a go, from hearing that from your parent as well. And sometimes they're not even aware that that's causing you angst as a parent of leaving things around the place is a bugbear of mine when it's
Yeah.
so close. Let's put it away. But also understanding that parents need to compromise too. Like, let's not expect everything to be super tidy all the time, but we can have minimum levels of standards that we expect in our household as well, because that's an important thing to be able to teach kids going forward. Compromise, but what are the minimum levels that we need to maintain?
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested in that as well because you mentioned getting the kids involved and that they can do things for themselves. And so I love your analogy about if they can work an iPad, they can work a washing machine. And I completely agree. Um, and there's some little things you can do to make it easier. Like on our washing machine, had to write on Nico or circle in Nico, like what's that called? Permanent marker. So they know which dial or which setting to put it on. Um, I've lost track of what I was thinking because, as I mentioned before, I've got a bit of a cold, but I will come to my point, I promise. Um, yeah, I wanted to hear an example about how that works in your house, maybe for washing, for example. But I'm wondering because we all know kids can do it, but what are some of the systems that you've got behind there to make sure that it's all running smoothly?
Yes, we look at what we need in our wardrobe. We try and have quite a decluttered and simplified wardrobe.
Mhm.
There's a common thing on TikTok at the moment about understanding your colors, which I think is a really good strategy for understanding which items mix and match. So you need less clothes in your wardrobe to
Yeah.
have thousands of, well, not thousands, hundreds of outfits. But we also do a similar thing that our children only have 3 school tops that they wear for 200 days of the year. So it is a good
Mhm.
reminder we don't need to have as much stuff. But that requires us to have a laundry strategy so the kids always have a clean uniform to wear.
Yeah.
So I've stopped, focused, noticed, and worked out how we can make that happen. So there's always a buffer of a spare clean uniform. And to be
Right.
honest, my kids have got a uniform out of the dirty wash when things haven't gone to plan. So remember, I'm not perfect either. But the
Yeah.
guide is that on a Tuesday and a Thursday, we wash the kids' school clothes. So they've had it on a Monday and they've worn 2 different tops on Monday, Tuesday. Things get washed on Tuesday night, and they've got that third top to wear Wednesday, and things are putting away. Or their clothes are put away on Wednesday after school. So the kids know that that's the routine we work on. They come home on a Tuesday, washing goes into the washing machine, and they are happier to put it on. I actually don't mind hanging up the washing, so I take on that task. And my bugbear, and when I stop focus notice where the bottleneck for having a Mount Washmore in a spare room of clean clothes that aren't hung up, we have come up with a strategy of taking the clothes straight out of the washing machine and hanging them onto the coat hangers, because we hang 90% of our clothes. So they go on a 2-row rack, and one load of washing machine can easily fit onto a rack with airing space between. And that can be wheeled outside in summer to dry off, or wheeled next to the fire to dry off in winter. And
Mhm.
by breaking down the laundry strategy into things that we're washing generally each day, so like towels get done on Monday, clothes on Tuesday, master bedding Wednesday morning, and so on and so forth, we can make sure that we aim to have our washing done by Friday morning, so our weekends are free for enjoying ourselves and getting out, maybe binge watching some TV or going out and
Yep.
enjoying ourselves. But if we hadn't thought of that plan beforehand, it wouldn't have worked. And then the kids can be involved in turning the washing machines on and hanging out the towels and the sheets and things like that as well. So it's having the system, people understanding what day it is and agreeing that they're going to take ownership over enacting some of those household tasks and, yeah, getting it done. And another one is my kids are able to run their mornings now. So their alarm goes off and they have a list on the fridge, breaking down things even to closing cupboard doors, because that is a bugbear of mine, kids
Okay.
leaving their wardrobes open. But if it's a clear list of what needs to be done before they get on the school bus, I can just say, where are you up to on your list? And they can go there and see what's remaining to be done, rather than me saying, have you brushed your teeth? Have you done your hair? Have you closed your cupboards? Have you made your beds? So it's simplifying the process, being clear on the expectations of what needs to be done in the morning, and, yeah, coming up with getting it done so we can have the calm morning So there's no yelling.
Yeah, yep. Most of the time, right?
Yes, most of the time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Parent Like a Psychologist. If you found it helpful, please share on Instagram so other parents can benefit too, and tag me at Leanne Tran Psychology so that I can say a big thank you. Head over to leannetran.com.au to join the village for bite-sized psychology tips straight to your inbox. I really hope this podcast has brought a new perspective and you a step closer towards a calm parent and a thriving child. Have a delightful day.